By the end of this video, you will know how to pronounce, define, and use 10 new words in a sentence. Hello, welcome to Saved Learning. Before we get started, you may want to download the free graphic organizer to help you take notes. I find learning vocabulary is easier the more ways you try and remember it. With that, let's get started. Okay, so we're going to do a bunch of videos starting with 10.1 and going onward to 10.2 and 10.3 and so on. These are the 10 words we'll focus on today. Ingenuity, trace, perpetually, formidable, equilib-ri-um, abruptly, gauge, tentatively, indulgence, and pretense. Let's go over them in detail. Ingenuity. Ingenuity is a noun. Nouns are people, places, things, or ideas. Ingenuity is really an idea. As you can see right here, ingenuity is 5 syllables. Ingenuity. I find it also helps to say the word out loud rather than just hearing it. So as you watch this video, maybe say it out loud. If you're with a bunch of people, maybe mutter it under your breath, but ingenuity. Its definition, cleverly or skillfully inventive, right? So it has this idea of being inventive or creative, right? Our synonym here is creativity. So you're creating things or you're inventing things in a very skillful or clever way. The opposite of that is dull, right? Someone who's not maybe so smart, not so skillful, not so creative. Our example sentence, Bella Rose showed great ingenuity by duct taping her car back together. So we can see here, this is Bella Rose's car, and this was pretty a great example of ingenuity, putting these duct tape the doors back together. We have some windows here. It's clear there, which is nice. That shows some skill, some inventive creativity. That's ingenuity. Next up, we have trace. Trace is a noun. As we can see here, it's just 1 syllable, trace. And there are many definitions for trace. The one we're going to focus on today is actually just a very small amount, such that it's difficult to notice. Okay, so our synonym is speck. Speck is just a little bit, something that's small, something that's hard to see, something difficult to notice. The opposite of that would be fistful. If you had a fistful of something, that'd be pretty easy to notice. So trace is just a small amount. Our example, when Bubba eats cookies, he doesn't leave any trace that the cookies existed in the first place. So Bubba here, apparently he's doing a 1-bite challenge with his cookie, right? He's not going to leave any trace. There won't be a speck. There won't be any left. Not even a crumb of this cookie. That's trace. Next, perpetually. And this is an adverb. Adverbs modify verbs. They give us more information about verbs. We can typically tell something is an adverb. They end in ly pretty commonly. Perpetually here is 5 syllables, perpetually, perpetually, a lot easier to say quickly than slowly like that, perpetually. Its definition is in a continual manner, and it's generally without changing, right? It's something that's continuing to be the same over and over and over. The synonym we have here is forever, and it's not a literal forever, it just feels like forever. The opposite or antonym of forever would just be occasionally, right? If something only happens occasionally, it's not perpetual, right? It's not in that continual manner. The example we have here, the road was perpetually divided by 2 yellow lines. So right here we have our 2 yellow lines. They kind of go off into the distance. We can't even see that far. It looks like it goes on forever. That's perpetually. Next up, formidable. Formidable. It's an adjective. It's going to modify a noun. We have 4 syllables here. Formidable. Formidable. Its definition is inspiring fear or respect by being strong or powerful. Okay? A good synonym for formidable is intimidating. Something that's intimidating inspires fear or demands respect. Really, the opposite would be something that's non-threatening, something that you're not afraid of, something that doesn't demand respect. Our example, the dragon was nothing if not a formidable enemy, right? We see a giant dragon here, breathing fire, looks pretty scary. I would not want to be one of these dudes down here trying to fight, right? I'd be intimidated, right? This dragon is a formidable enemy. Formidable. Next up, equilibrium. Equilibrium is a noun, 5 syllables, equilib-ri-um, equilibrium. Our definition, a state of physical balance. Now, doesn't have to be physical necessarily, but it generally is, right? We could have a state of equilibrium with our emotions, a mental equilibrium, right, when we're balancing our emotions. But generally, when we talk about it, it's going to be a physical balance. A good synonym would be evenness, the same amount on each side. The antonym or opposite then would be imbalance, something that is not balanced. For our example, as a tightrope walker, Sammy, this is Sammy right here, better not lose his equilibrium, right? Sammy better not lose his balance or his evenness, or else he would fall. So we see a rope here. This looks pretty dangerous, right? These are like mountains and cliff sides. If he lost his equilibrium, he would fall, right? He needs to keep his balance. That's equilibrium. Next up, abruptly. Notice, ends in ly. That's why it's an adverb. Adverbs, again, modify verbs. And abruptly, 3 syllables, abruptly, abruptly. Its definition, in a sudden manner. And it has this notion of being rude, right? It's not a very good thing. It's not a positive thing when you get up abruptly or do something abruptly, right? Because it's unexpected. People don't like things that are unexpected. The opposite of that is expectedly. When we expect something to happen, we tend to be more okay with it than when something happens all of a sudden. But it really just means in a sudden manner without forewarning. We didn't know about it beforehand. Our example, when Booker, so this is Booker right here, abruptly walked out of the room to take a call, we assumed it was from his Nana, who was in the hospital. So I don't know about you, but if my Nana was in the hospital, she decided to call me, I would abruptly, doesn't matter if I'm trying to be rude, right? I care about my Nana. I want to hear how she's doing in the hospital, right? Got up, out of the room, took this call abruptly. Next up, we have gauge. Gauge is a verb here, 1 syllable, gauge. Definition is to estimate the quantity or quality of something. And a good synonym is measure, right? We're trying to measure something. We're trying to gauge something. I couldn't find a good antonym or an opposite of that because you can measure something badly or you can measure something accurately, but a bad measurement or poorly gauging something isn't necessarily the opposite. If you can think of one, put it down in the comments below. Would love to hear what you think a good antonym or the opposite of gauge would be. For my example here, it can be difficult to gauge how valuable art is just by looking at it. Now, I don't know about you. I actually love art. I think it's great. I could just stare at it for hours. But I can't tell if something is worth $100 million or $10. The Mona Lisa here, one of the most famous paintings of all time, worth tons of money. But it's difficult, really, I think, to gauge, right, to measure or to estimate the quality of some art. That's what gauge means. Next up, tentatively. Ends in ly, adverb, tentatively, 4 syllables, tentatively, and it's with hesitation and waiting. The synonym we have here is conditional, right? There's some kind of conditionality, and that's why we're waiting. That's why we're hesitating. The opposite is, it kind of means absolute, right? If you're absolutely going to be doing something, then it's a for sure thing. There's no conditional nature to it. But tentatively means, well, hang on, let's wait a second, and then maybe we'll do this thing. Our example here, Callie's mom tentatively or conditionally agreed to take us to see a movie, assuming, right, this is the condition, assuming we finished our vocabulary first. So once this condition is true, then we get to go see a movie. That's what tentatively means. We're going to do this thing if or when something happens. Tentatively. Next up, indulgence. Indulgence is a noun. Indulgence, 3 syllables. Indulgence. Allowing oneself to enjoy something pleasing. And it has this idea of extra to it. It's certainly not a necessity. That's the opposite. You're enjoying something that you don't need. It's this extra pleasing thing in life that you just get to enjoy. For example, Katrina's indulgence led to sleeping in past noon. I don't know about you, I don't often get to sleep in past noon. I go to work 8 a.m., so that's an indulgence. That's something extra that you don't normally get. It's just something pleasing. Okay, you get to sleep in later than normal. That's indulgence. Last one on our list, pretense. Pretense is a noun, 2 syllables, pretense, and it means a claim, and it's generally false or misleading. A good synonym might be, it's kind of like a white lie. It's not necessarily a straight out lie where you're trying to hurt someone. It's this idea of maybe you're trying to save face or not hurt someone's feelings. But a good opposite of it would be truth, right? Because pretense is a claim that's generally not truth, or maybe a shade of truth. In our example here, we have Fleur. Let me know how you'd pronounce that. Fleur made a pretense of saying everything was fine when she was actually very sick. So she's saying something, right? She has her fingers crossed, and we know that's kind of when you're maybe not telling the whole truth. So this is a pretense, not saying the whole truth, but, pretending everything is fine when in fact she's actually very sick. That's a pretense for something. All right, that's it for this week. Here's a sneak preview of next week's 10 words. Please leave a comment below. I would love, love, love to hear your thoughts on these words, and if there's anything else you would like to see, please let me know. Thank you so much. See you next week.